Welcome to the No Limit Selling Podcast, where industry leaders share their advice on how you can become better, stronger, faster. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the No Limit Selling Podcast. Today, so excited to be talking to Cindy Miller. She runs a golf camp. I'm not going to describe it properly, but there is a direct link between golf and business, and it's all about mindset. Cindy, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Umar.
So there's a word we're not allowed to use in golf called a yips. Don't tell any golfer. What are the yips?
You know what it is? It's when your mind is afraid to swing and you get afraid and scared and you don't follow through.
Yeah. So what's kind of interesting is it's not so much the hitting of something, it's the follow through that really counts, where you just let your body do the motion it naturally wants to do. And the same thing is true in leadership. It's if you get that doubt coming in, whatever you're trying to get people to do, it just doesn't quite land because it isn't that smooth, effortless kind of swing.
I think people are afraid of the outcome, so they don't follow the process. And when that happens, they're so worried about the outcome that they're not focusing on what they're doing to create the outcome. Therefore, they don't do what they're supposed to do to get the outcome.
Yeah, there's this place on the other side of knowing, which is where it just becomes an effortless, non-thinking activity, where the swing just happens, and the same thing's true whether you're doing leadership or speaking or whatever, where you just your majesty comes through, and if you overthink it, then of course it breaks down the system.
Absolutely. Your left brain gets in the way.
So tell us about how you got into golf and how you got out of golf.
Well, I'm still in golf.
Because it was yes, you kind of left the PGA Tour and then you kind of came back in.
I did. So my parents played golf. They used to drag me to the golf course, and I didn't really like it. The pool was my babysitter until I got fat in 8th grade, and all the cute boys started to call me 10-ton Tessie.
Oh
and
my
I
God.
didn't really have any other choice but the golf course. So I started to play golf, and my parents got me lessons, and the golf pro said, she's really got some talent. And I was pretty good. And my mom and her friends took me to an LPGA Tour event, and I fell in love with the game. Then I saw this girl, Laura Baugh, who was a year older than me, and this beautiful golf bag and these gorgeous clothes and the shoes. And I immediately thought to myself, that's what I want to do, and I want to beat her. And I wasn't good enough. And I came home and I told my parents I was going to play on the LPGA Tour. And my dad said, well, you're not quite good enough. What's your plan? So I wrote to the Ben Hogan Company because I played their golf clubs, and Golf Digest magazine because I read their magazine. And I asked them if they knew of any colleges that had women's golf teams, because there was no internet at the time. And they actually wrote back and gave me a list of schools that had golf teams. And the one that stood out the most was the University of Miami. So I wrote to them and I asked if I could be on their golf team. And they wrote back and said, well, you're really not good enough. But you're welcome to come down and be a walk-on. But they said, you'll probably never play. My dad said, you've got 1 year to earn a scholarship or you're going to have to come home because this place is too expensive. So I never visited the school. A family friend was a captain for an airline company, and they happened to live in Coral Gables, Florida, but they had a summer cottage at the beach where we lived. And they dumped me off at my dorm with my golf clubs in my suitcase. And I sat on the bed and cried for about an hour. And then I got up and I hit balls. And 4 years later, I graduated the #1 player on the team. And we won back-to-back national championships my junior and senior year. And then I didn't qualify for the tour on my first attempt. I wasn't good enough. And the second attempt I did. 3 years later, I lost my card. So of the best in the world, I was the worst. And then I married PGA Tour player Alan Miller. And so I qualified. I lost my card. I married PGA Tour player Alan Miller. and then he quit playing, and then we started teaching. And 25 years after I lost my card, I saw there was a Legends Tour for former LPGA Tour players. And I thought, you know what? This is redemption. I need to prove to myself the dream that I had when I was 17 to be a star on the LPGA Tour wasn't going to be a nightmare that would haunt me the rest of my life.
Right.
So I asked my husband and my 3 children, or our 3 children, if I could go back and try to play on this Legends Tour. And they all said, yeah. So I made a plan to practice and learn how to play again so I could go back and have redemption. And I did.
Nice. So we're going to go forward in the story in a little while, but I want to backtrack a little bit. I do a lot of work with all kinds of people, and the group of people that kind of stand out at this moment are nurses. And when I have a group of nurses in a room, the story you hear a lot is I was 5 years old. My dad had a heart attack. We went to the hospital, and I saw the way the nurses look after my dad, and I knew right there and then I'm going to be a nurse. And it kind of reminded me of when you saw the LPG tour, and you basically went, that's me. That's what I'm going to do. And so it sounded like, no doubt, this is a done deal. Am I kind of reading it right, the way you felt?
Yeah. Yeah.
Had you ever done that before in your life? Or was this like the first time where you kind of went, this is a dream, I want to follow it?
I wanted to be a musician. I played clarinet.
Mm.
I wanted to be a rock star, but there were no rock stars that played clarinet.
I had noticed that. That was my first instrument that I gave up after a week. So I was a quitter.
Yeah. So, yeah, there were no clarinet players that were rock stars.
So tell me about the other thing that stood out was getting to the university and basically crying for an hour. And there's something important about that in terms of this is scratching noise. Do you know where that's coming from?
It's my speaker, and I cannot fix it for the life of me.
It's the ghost of golf past. All right. So you cried for an hour, and there's something to be said about feeling the emotion, whether it's despair, defeat, joy, whatever it is, and not bottle it in. And something about that allows you to move forward. So as you finished crying, what were the thoughts in your head that kind of got you to, okay, let's go hit balls. Let's get started.
Well, so there's a part that's not so small that is kind of big too that I didn't tell you. So my parents were both alcoholics. And my father used to beat the snot out of my mother.
Yikes.
And I had to call the cops on him when I was in 4th grade. So I was the youngest child, and my older brother and sister left as soon as they could escape. They were gone. So I was the mediator and had to keep mom alive. So I talk to my students a lot, my kids that I teach, about, what's your motivation? What are you running away from? And what are you running towards? So we're motivated 2 ways. You either want to get off the nail or you're trying to seek reward. So I was running from something and I was running towards something. So I'm sitting there thinking, mom's going to die and it's your fault, but you want this trophy. So I was sitting there figuring, okay, it's your fault. She's dying, but you really want to do this. So there were 2 parts to this, and I was fighting in my head. And I thought, well, I've got to go do this. And you can't keep her alive anymore.
Thank you for sharing that. So oftentimes when you have someone that's in that position, often it ends up being the youngest child that ends up being not so much the mediator, which could be true in your case, but oftentimes the warrior that kind of defends and protects mom. Was that you?
Yeah.
And that gives you 2 abilities for most people. So never let me put words in your mouth. One is the ability to read people, because especially when you have an alcoholic that can go from happy to not happy in like a moment. So just the ability to read people. Has that been a skill? Is that a skill that served you well?
Oh, yes. Yes. Yes.
And then
I'm
the other
very good
one,
at that.
the other one is basically oftentimes we'll do more for other people than we'll do for ourselves. Like it brings up a courage and a strength that if you were going to get the beating, it's a different ball game compared to you're going to stop your mom from getting hurt. It almost makes us braver. Uh, was that happening? And if it was, how does that?
No,
No. Tell me
no.
what was happening.
Um, I would distract him and I
Mm,
would talk to him. And he knew that I had potential. So I would sit and talk to him. And it was the first skill, and I would woo him away because he was me. He was a high D personality,
mm,
Mr. I had the ability to, over here, over here. Let's not
right.
look at her. Let's look at me. Let's talk about how to be successful in life. And which is unbelievable as a 16 and a 17-year-old, right? And talk about golf, talk about anything except mother.
Excellent. So, really, the power to influence someone you have no
Yeah.
control over, the ability to get them to change is all about influence. So, right now, you do golf and leadership. Uh, so, talk to me about, well, let's define leadership. How do you define leadership?
I don't know. I don't know that I've ever even tried to define leadership.
Interesting. Okay.
Isn't that funny? The
So, I'll give you
courage to, help people achieve goals.
the courage to, yeah. So, I'll add my definition to it. Uh, there are leaders that they try and use the brute force as their technique for leadership. And
Mm,
there's leaders that use the power of influence that get people to give their best efforts without any direct connection that I'm your boss, you have to do this. And they're the
right,
ones that are like spectacular leaders. So it
right.
sounds like you kind of picked up that skill to influence people pretty early. And how's that served you in your career? The ability to influence.
I think it's huge. And I really didn't, I knew that I had people skills,
Hmm.
but I thought it was um, because I was like the country club's little mascot.
Mm,
So and it's so funny because over the weekend, Sunday night, the club where I grew up, the clubhouse burnt down.
mm,
And I was so sad yesterday because it's like a history, right?
right.
Of being at that place where mom and dad would sit at the bar and come home and then he would beat the crap out of her. And I would be stuck at the pool and then blah, blah, blah. And my picture was hanging up there, right? With winning the New York State Amateur and all that stuff. And I was like, this is so sad that this club burned down. Um, but I would run the skins game during a men's tournament. So it would be like Cindy would take all the bets from the guy. So I would have to
Mm,
deal with the guy that was, well, now Cindy, how many points did I get? And now Cindy, the jerk that was real detail oriented, and I would
right.
have to make him like me. And then the fun loving guy. And then I would cook hamburgers. So it was dealing with people. And I thought that was what gave me that skill, which maybe it was. It helped me develop that skill.
Mm.
But
Yeah,
it was
especially,
also dealing with my father.
yeah, definitely. I think it's we end up with the lives that we have, and we could have rainbows and chocolates, and we could, which does not mean that you have a great life or you feel good about yourself. And you could have like stuff that was really negative. It's how we make meaning out of it and what we learn from it that allow us to be the person we are. And so part of leadership is facing challenges and growing through them. So tell me about one of those times in your life where you had to face a challenge that may have been small or something that seemed insurmountable, and how you overcame it. or how you failed and how you got through that.
I don't know. Probably just trying to make the top 5 on the golf team, I guess. Not
Yeah.
being good enough. And knowing that I was not going to come home. Dad saying, you've got 1 year to earn a scholarship or you're coming home. And
Right.
I would practice more than anybody because I burnt the bridge. I was not going to come home. And I wasn't good enough, right? So I had to practice more than everybody. So it was having the grit and the resilience and watching everyone else. What did they do that I don't do? Looking in the mirror, being willing to look in the mirror and see your faults and working harder than everybody else.
Yeah, because in the initial story that you told me, there was more than enough people telling you that you sucked. You're not good enough. You'll never get on and play a game. And so for a lot of people, that can actually defeat them. And for some people, it can inspire them. And some people, this, I'll show you. So how did you take it? Because obviously you did the activities you needed to do to be better. But what was that initial reception like when they said and you knew that you weren't good enough?
I would look at them and say that they're not that much better than me. I can do this. I just need to work harder. And it's funny because I had a situation this weekend with a young girl who was going to play in a tournament, and the tournament was way above her ability. And I said, you need to focus on the task at hand of what you're doing with the club. You can't think outcome. You have to know what you're doing with the club. And if you focus on what you're doing with the club, you're going to hit the ball better than you've ever hit it. But if you're thinking outcome, it's going to be a hard day. And she chose to withdraw and not play. And I said to my husband on the way home, why did we choose not to quit? And he said, Cindy, we're only half of 1% that made it on tour.
Right.
We're the only married couple in the world that, played on the PGA Tour, the LPGA Tour, the Champions Tour, and the Legends Tour. And he said, most people give up. I'm like, wow, why would you give up? Especially when you've got someone encouraging you. If you think these thoughts and you follow these actions, you can do this.
It's really easy there's Charles Manson on the other side. I've got a baseball bat. I stand a chance. But when the enemy's inside your head, no matter who's rooting for you on the outside, that's a tough one. I think there's a quote from Arnold Palmer that went something like, success in the game depends less on your physicality and more on your mindset and how you show up. And that's the major issue. So that gives me a really good segue, Cindy. Like right now, you're helping underprivileged youth using golf as a mechanism to get them to do what? To feel what?
To believe that they can do whatever it is they're supposed to do. And again, it's not, well, I'm going to be president. It's who am I? Why was I born? What are my gifts, my talents? What motivates me to action? And I've got this thing called the it box, right? And there's 3 things in the box. There's a nail. Am I sitting on a nail? Should I get off the nail? What hurts? I can choose to allow the nail to hurt. I can sit here and whine and cry about what's bugging me, or I can get off the nail. So I wanted to get off the nail when I was little. Either you're motivated by pain, I got to get off the nail, or I'm seeking reward. That's the first thing in the box. Second thing in the box is a mirror. I need to look in the mirror. What do I need to fix? Who am I? What are my gifts and my talents? And then there's a seed. I've got to do something about it. I need to take a class. I need to go to school. I need to learn how to hit the ball better, whatever it is. But there are ways to achieve what you want to achieve. And without emotion and the committee of they, who are they? Well, maybe you have a negative parent who's never achieved anything. Maybe that voice has been in your head most of your life. Well, you have to understand the committee isn't the truth. And your beliefs come from experiences, and those experiences can develop your attitude, and then that's going to create your actions. What if those beliefs aren't true? You're following the wrong road your
Right.
whole life. Hi, slap yourself.
Because that's the business I'm in, is uncovering those beliefs that don't serve us and changing them really quickly. Because what happens is this, is that take, for example, somebody has an issue around public speaking. Like, I never want to speak in public, because when they were 7 years old, they read something in class, they screwed something up in the reading. The kids laughed. The teacher gave them a look like you're an idiot, and they made a decision, I'll never speak in public again. And they never do speak comfortably in public. Sure, for their daughter's wedding, they say something, if they were forced at work. But when they're 65 at a retirement community, they get so angry at the board that's running the organization, they say, that's it, those idiots, I'm going to run for president. And in that moment, the fear of public speaking goes, but it took them 60 years to get there. You can have another person, same experience. They never want to speak. They go to a therapist for 3 months. Then one Thursday afternoon, the therapist says something. The moment before they said it, they were stuck. The moment they said it, it changed something within them. And then all of a sudden they can speak comfortably, easily. My whole reason for being is to help people to get to that change point. If we can get to that change point and get them to make that change and change that belief, it changes how they see the world and how they show up. And so, Cindy, tell us about the youth program. What's it called? And then give us a success story of someone that may have been struggling and how the game of golf and your leadership helped them overcome. Hallelujah.
It's called the Pursue Your It Project. And
Pursue
we've taught a young...
your it.
Pursue your it.
Ah, love it.
IT. Your potential, your passion, your purpose in life. We teach a young girl who we've taught her since she was 10. And she's 26. And this is not so much in the program, but this is 16 years of teaching her. And she has just gone through her third time of going to the LPGA Tour qualifying school. And it's a family affair. We call her a golf daughter. And she's very, we do DISC assessments. High D is competitive control freak lunatic,
Right.
which is me. An I is a personable, motor mouth, fun-loving people
That's me.
person. Yeah. An S is shy, steady, controlled. She's an S. And a C is very cautious, analytical. So she's an SC, as is my husband. So she's gone to the qualifying school twice. She just went, this was her third time. Now, my husband teaches her, but my son and I, we have 3 kids, but my son is a really good player. My son is a high D like me. And for some reason, right before she left, I gave her a big hug. Her father was going to caddy for her. Father's a high D like me. And I said to her, are you good? I'm good. I said, give me a hug. She said, I'm good. I said, give me a hug anyway. I said, do you need a pep talk? No, I'm good. She went, I'm good, like a real high D would do. I go, oh, okay. Like, okay, I'm going to back away. So she goes and they play practice rounds. She sends me a text and she said, I've been 9 under par for the last 3 days. I'm like, okay, great. She shoots 5 under par, comes in 32nd out of 317.
Ah, bravo.
She qualifies, right? So I don't say anything because this is only stage 1. She's got to go to stage 2 and stage 3. So I said something to my son and I said, did you say something to Chelsea? He said, yeah. I said, what'd you say to her? He said, I told her that when I went to qualifying school, what finally kicked into me was once I made a birdie, instead of thinking outcome, that was really easy. I can make another one. And I'm not going to think about what I'm shooting. I can make another one. And I can make another one. and I can make another one. And I'm never going to think about what position I'm in. So once she played really well the first day, and I said, way to go. And she goes, don't tell me where I sit. I don't want to know where I am and on the leaderboard. Thank you very much. I could have done better. I said, okay. So I'm not saying a word to her. So only what it was our son saying, don't think about outcome. I can make another one. I can make another one. So again, it's like you said, it can be one stupid little thing that changes everything.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, thank you for sharing that story. It's not just saying that one stupid thing, it's saying that one stupid thing at the right moment of time, because that advice could have been given a year before and it would have fallen on deaf ears.
Right.
So all that, her journey and you helping your husband, and then of course none of that would have been as important unless that catalyst that your son threw in there. So humans are fascinating.
Absolutely.
So how many people come through your program each year on the kids side of things?
Hundreds.
Cool. And so let me know when you want me to come out there and do a mindset piece for you guys. Would be my gift to the program to do. I'm here in Toronto. You guys are near Buffalo, I think.
Yes.
It'd be
Yes.
super easy to do. And you also do stuff for corporate events and leadership events for corporations. Tell us about that.
Again, it's people learning how to get along with other people. We do a lot of the assessments, team building stuff. We help people just learn how to get along with people. It's
Nice.
amazing that people don't understand personality stuff. And when I first learned this, I was at a seminar where a woman was talking about how her husband drove her nuts. And I just kind of sat up and go, oh, yeah, I got one of those. And she had written a book called Personality Plus. And I couldn't get to the back of the room fast enough to buy the book, and took the assessment, and, and then I got certified in it. So it was just such a big deal. And I was not aware that there were different styles and stuff. So people aren't aware of it. Now, corporate people use assessments a lot to learn how to get along with people. But we use it in the game of golf as well. And we do a lot of training to teach people how to use the game of golf as a tool, a networking tool and a business development tool, because so many people, take people out on the golf course. And it's very important to know how to use the game as a business development tool. So we do a lot of that as well.
Love that. Cindy, how can people get a hold of you?
Cindy at CindyMillerInc.com.
Love that. We're going to outro the show, then I'll be back online to chat for a few minutes. Thank you, Cindy, for a great interview. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. And if you're looking for more tools, go to my website at NoLimitSelling.com. I've got a free mind training course there that's going to teach you some insights from the world of neuro-linguistic programming, and that is the fastest way to get better results.